Hey everyone, it's Matt here.
How's it going, everybody? It's your friend Will.
Welcome back to another episode of Savants Tech Talk. Today we're going to talk about legacy systems versus modern systems and what you should consider when making your choice.
I'm already sensing a lot of people getting triggered right now. Oh, this is going to be good. So if you're a young tech professional that just came out of university or college and you're passionate about learning computer science, passionate about going into the industry and create the next big thing, you're probably going to have a very negative connotation about the term legacy system. It's usually synonymous to outdated technology or technology that takes a lot of time and effort to maintain, and there's bound to be less creativity involved when you're working with such technology. But is this really the case? Today, we're going to take a deeper look into that.
Are you a passionate tech professional looking to hustle and advance your career in the tech industry? You should subscribe to our YouTube channel for all the latest tips, insights, and advice on what's going on in the tech industry.
A legacy system is an old method technology, computer system, or a computer application that is outdated or being developed previously. And the term legacy usually means a previous generation of standard and practice associated with that particular technology system.
As mentioned, legacy systems have a reputation of being old and outdated. But if that's the case, how come large banks and large enterprises invest so much money to keep them going? Well, one of the reasons is because legacy systems have been around longer. So this means that they're more mature and there's a lot more resources readily available to help train new people in using those legacy systems.
Yeah, that's right. Because it has been longer, a lot of bugs that are being introduced in the early stage of a technology have already been sorted out by early generation engineers. And because of that, it's relatively stable and there's more learning material available on the internet. And hence, there's more engineers out there who already have skill set related to this particular type of technology. It can be, for instance, earlier, the IBM mainframe and IBM DB2 was widely used by several different banks. And because there are a lot of engineers available in the market that already have this type of skill set, it's very easy for them to find people with such skill to hire and maintain the system.
Another reason that these companies might want to keep using their legacy systems is because their staff and their team are familiar with it already. Whereas if they were to modernize, they would have to undergo re-educating their staff. And if they were to continuously keep remodernizing, they would have to continuously keep retraining everyone. When you have a lot of employees, that can be a very rigorous process.
The reason for large enterprises to be kind of the late adopter of newer technology is because when a large organization onboard a new type of technology and technical skill set, they have to go through a lot of rigorous transformation. And that brings a lot of uncertainty and risk to the organization. When you're dealing with a company of massive size, it's no longer just a matter of whether or not they can release new feature quickly or whether or not they can make sure the code is 100% clean. But more so, how do they mitigate risk? How do they introduce less uncertainty to the company?
The third reason that companies might want to stick with their legacy systems is because the requirements that they're looking for only need to meet the bare minimum, and it might be way more costly for them to even try to modernize for not as much benefit.
That's right. For a tech professional, we're very passionate about developing a system or an application that is not only elegant, but also scalable and powerful. But for a large business entity, to them, it's all a business case. Does it cost more in the long term for me to maintain this system? Or does it cost more for me to develop and also go through the development cycle, go through quality assurance, go through operation, so that they can find bugs in the system and fix it? And in most of the cases, it costs significantly less for a large organization to maintain their current infrastructure, their current system, than to develop a new system, adopting some of the newer technology. And that is not 100% of the time. A lot of large business organizations are now migrating to cloud. That's a prime example of large business organizations looking to adopt newer technology because they realize it's more costly for the large business entity to maintain their on-premise infrastructure, to maintain their data center, than to say use Amazon or Google or Microsoft's cloud computing services. Now, we've talked a lot about the advantages of the legacy systems, and we've seen that large business entities who have existed for a very long period of time are now migrating to using newer technology. Why is that? What are some of the disadvantages of utilizing legacy systems?
Well, first off, the legacy systems are very expensive to maintain. As the Docker COO Scott Johnson said, businesses spend as much as 80% of their IT budgets on supporting these legacy applications. Now, with these legacy systems, it can be very difficult to find talent because these coding languages are getting older, they're getting outdated, and if they get harder to find, that means they get more expensive to implement.
I just find it so fitting that the COO of Docker is coming up with reasons why it's difficult to maintain and support legacy system, because that's a whole value proposition of Docker. But anyways, yes, precisely, like I mentioned earlier, it is a business case at the end of the day. Is it more expensive to maintain the current infrastructure, or is it more expensive to experiment and come up with a better solution than the existing system in order to replace it? In most of the case, because of the complexity of a large business entity, it is almost always more costly to develop a new system. But also in a lot of the cases, the growing pain of having to find top-notch talent in the market to help supporting the legacy system is getting more and more painful, right? And also for a company who brand themselves to be more innovative, to be more experimental, it is also a good way to enhance their branding when they onboard newer technology.
There are also other factors that you need to take into consideration as well when it comes to the cost of implementing a legacy system. For example, you can't really measure things like your inability to adapt, change. You can't measure how much, it's very hard to measure how much competition you may be losing due to falling behind your competition who are adapting to more relevant, more modern solutions, as well as your inability to actually gain data that could be useful that you can't gain on a legacy system.
Let's say a company is using a legacy system that it's probably going to be pretty hard for them. Yeah, an example is a company who is banking on legacy system is going to probably be having a pretty difficult time to integrate something like Google Analytics with their existing software and website.
Due to the high costs of maintaining a legacy system, that means you have less resources readily available for you to be able to invest into innovation.
Yeah, for a large organization that have millions of dollars that they have to allocate on each and different department, budget they're setting for their IT department is limited. There's only a limited budget when it comes down to how much they can spend every year. So if they allocate a higher percentage on maintaining the existing infrastructure, maintain the existing system, obviously there's going to be less money to be allocated for them to experiment with new things.
Another thing to consider when working with legacy systems is because they are getting more and more outdated, a lot of the software vendors will actually stop supporting the tools and APIs associated.
Yeah, vendors out there, they like to work with new technology as well. They're very usually a solution provider is a smaller vendor, and a vendor needs to really think about what's the market's biggest demand. At a time point, after a certain threshold, there will be less and less demand for supporting legacy system. And that's when the vendors start to really say, okay, now it's time to move on, to remove the support for certain legacy systems.
And because they're old and outdated, that means there's likely better solutions that have been developed that serve the same functions at a higher and more cost-effective level.
Right. Now we've bashed the legacy systems long enough. What about the modern systems? What are some of the advantages of modern systems?
Well, one big advantage of the modern systems is talent recruitment. Modern systems utilize the most popular technologies available and people who follow the current best practices, which makes it a lot easier to find talent. Not only to find them, but also to find a more innovative team and build a more innovative culture in your company.
There's always benefit when it comes down to adopting modern system because once again, it's following the current best practice. And guess what? People learn and make better technology as time progresses. So there's no argument that the newer technology will be better than the old. So there's always reward for those that do try to adopt modern system and modern technology.
Yeah. Another big advantage of using modern systems is, unlike legacy systems that are at the end of their life cycle, modern systems are at the beginning of their life cycle, which means they're more likely to have a longer lifespan. And that also means that you're set in a position where there's going to be more resources readily available to help you continue to train your team as time goes on.
Yeah, imagine if you used PHP when it just came out. For the prime of its time, you're probably going to have no trouble finding talent. You're probably going to build a lot of awesome, cool, compelling websites. And similarly, if you started adopting Node.js when it just came out, by now you're probably the leading innovator in the industry for JavaScript-related full-stack development. And those are just examples of how early adopters can really reap their rewards as time progresses. It's almost like an investment. The time value of adopting early really compounds as time progresses. You will be able to have more people, you will be able to have more sophisticated system, you'll be able to have deeper understanding within your organization when it comes down to adopting a technology that is going to grow over time.
And lastly, modern systems are built with scalability and upgrading in mind. So unlike legacy systems, they can be very expensive for you to tear down and replace. It'll be way more cost effective and easier for you to continue modernizing.
Correct. Let's not forget, at the end of the day, what is a modern system or a legacy system? At the end of the day, they are all solutions to problems. And just like a regular product development cycle where it's iterative and you develop the next level generation product after you come up with the first minimum viable product, right? It's the same thing here. When it comes down to a modern system, the architect and the designer of the modern system have already seen the shortcomings of a legacy system. They are standing on the giant's shoulder in a way because they've already seen what are some of the flaws of previous solution to a problem. That's why the newer generation solution will always address those issues, will be more scalable, will be more secure, and will be able to encapsulate the shortcoming and the flaws of the previous legacy system.
That sounds great, but there are a few disadvantages to modern systems as well that you need to take into consideration. For example, if you continuously are modernizing, that means you need to be continuously re-educating your team on the most modern solutions.
Yeah, and think about that for a second. If you are a 3-month development team, that probably isn't an issue, right? You have a hackathon weekend you have a weekend get together and everybody just hash it out and you are able to communicate easily and get everybody onto the same page. But imagine if you are a company with 10,000 technology team members. That's going to be a huge cost to training and bringing people up to speed when it comes down to adopting and onboarding a new technology. How many of you Node.js lovers have seen a production build being broken because one of the dependencies got upgraded and for some reason it's not backward compatible? Because I have my fair share of those experiences. And let me tell you, it is not exactly pleasant when you see your product that is launched in production break down because you have to constantly keep yourself updated with the open source community updates.
If you own a company that is already using a legacy system or has legacy systems in place, you really need to consider the overall cost of maintaining that legacy system, as well as the cost that will be involved in tearing that system down and replacing it with a brand new one. Also, if you're using legacy systems, you'll need to consider if modernizing the system is necessary or if the older outdated model is still efficient for the current use that is being used for.
At the end of the day, it's a business case. Is it more beneficial to the business to leverage the existing legacy system, or is it better for a company to adopt a modern system, a newer technology? You have to consider many different aspects when it comes down to answering that question. Is your company a leading innovator in the industry, or is your company more of a mature player in the industry? Is technology a big part of your business operation and drives revenue to your company? Or is it just a bare minimum must-have that you need to allocate a particular budget towards? It is almost always the case that a legacy system is beneficial for a certain period of time. But after a particular threshold, the cost of maintaining a legacy system just grows more and more, right? So it's almost like a tumor, right? If you cut the tumor at an early stage, you will be able to save a lot of pain later on.
And also, if you're currently working with a legacy system, you need to take into consideration the opportunity costs you could be missing out on, as well as in the cases of falling behind your competition or not being able to adapt to the changing markets.
And now you're probably wondering, you've talked a lot, but you talk the talk, but have you walked the walk? What do you guys really use at Fintelics, right? You're thinking that? Yeah? No? We'll just say yes, okay.
No, then we won't talk about it then.
Okay. Okay, in Fintelics, we use mostly modern systems. The reason for that is because we are a relatively new company and technology is a big part of our company. So being able to constantly adapt and learning new technical stack is the foundation of how we, become competitive in the market and how we offer service and products to our customers. But that being said, it's not like we discriminate against legacy system and older technical stack. But at the same time, we also believe in a lot of technology and technical stacks that are mature, such as the LAMP stack, such as Java Enterprise. These systems have existed for a long period of time, and there is a huge community out there that we can really borrow help from.
So there you have it. What is your professional experience with legacy systems and modern systems? Which one do you like better? Feel free to let us know in the comments down below. Again, if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more great content.
And sometimes the term legacy system and modern systems are relative. Something can be modern and legacy to a different group of people. What is your experience in trying to convince someone that a legacy system is actually a modern system? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.